Force holidays? Forced the wrong guy. On a Friday, employer tells me I'm on holidays next week for 2 weeks. I wanted to use those 2 weeks during summer with my family. Nope, they insist it has to be done now as it will be too busy then. My brother had been inviting me to his workplace, so I started the following Monday. 2 weeks. Called on Sunday letting them know I had found another job paying 40% more and wasn't coming in ever again. But you gave us no notice. You got the same notice I got for my holidays. They tried legal threats and lost. Don't ask if you don't want to know. My neighbor is a proper Christian lady and a huge busybody. She was my friend on FB and had been for years, because she is also the president of our WA and shares info on her page which I liked having access to. A couple of years ago I was asked to moderate a relatively large Facebook group, so I changed my FB name from my legal name to first name middle name. Sally Joe as opposed to Sally Joe Smith. Well, PCL saw me at the park not too long after and asked why I changed my FB name. I didn't give her an answer. She asked me no less than 4 times over the following weeks, finally cornering me at the grocery store saying, "Well, are you ever going to tell me why you changed your Facebook name?" I'd had enough. So I flatly said, I joined a swingers group, and I've started meeting people on FB for no strings attached adult fun. I was concerned about someone learning my identity and stalking me, so I decided to remove my last name for security. She blushed a color I'd never seen before and just walked away. It was glorious, and a week later I noticed we were no longer FB friends. I planted some mint. Several people in IATA suggested I post this here among like-minded fellows, so here we go. Last year one of my 40F partners, 47M, relatives first got very sick and then died. While he was in hospital for several months, we regularly dropped by to look after his house, fix the garden, make sure nothing was amiss and such. Now, one of the neighbors is a real surprise. As she does not like to garden, she had the garden, front and back, of the property she has rented filled up with gravel. I think it's stupid and ugly, but as long as she is happy, more power to her, in her garden. Said neighbor started pestering my partner and me about things she wanted changed in the relative's garden. Bushes cut off, plants removed, that. She also claimed that the way we were gardening was attracting harmful bugs, which, when I showed them to a friendly biologist, were confirmed to be wood sorrel seeds. Anyway, I talked everything through with her to confirm what needed doing and removed any plants that were threatening to intrude into her garden, ivy, blackberry, etc. The only thing I cut was one hazel branch, as it was in the middle of a dry spell. Cutting them then is bad for the plant, and we were planning to relocate the bush anyway. I explained this to her and asked if she could wait until spring. She said it was fine and let me get back to gardening. The next time I dropped by, someone had hacked the branch in question off, at the widest area near the base, splintering and at a weird angle. To be clear, legally she was allowed to cut anything growing over her property back, and the branch was approximately 10 centimeters across the border. I'm just really annoyed she said it was fine to wait and then hacked at the plant the moment we were not looking. But as my partner's family was worried about the relative, I decided to let it slip and kept taking care of the garden. By now we have cute and relocated the hazel, as promised. There was an empty spot in the middle of the relative's front yard, maybe 6 by 4 feet, and I decided to put some regionally native mint there. In case you do not know, mint is a very useful plant. Insects like it, you can make it into tea, it smells delicious and keeps mosquitoes away. And it's unstoppable. I know it will spread into the neighbor's yard and mess up her peaceful gravel paradise, and it is all but impossible to get rid of. It spreads along underground root tendrils. My father thinks this is hilarious. Obviously I got my petty qualities from him. My partner, on the other hand, thinks I may have been unnecessarily mean. The family plans to sell the property. The time this problem becomes obvious, we will be long gone. I have also ordered a bee-friendly mix to freshen up the grass in the backyard, as she complained the grass was too high growing and we had to rake out most of it. Can't sell a house with a bare dirt backyard, right? My last glorious day as a Starbucks barista. This might be more malicious compliance, but it works here and my post there got zero traction. So try here. Loli used to be a Starbucks barista. We had a woman who would come in every morning and order, I hit you not, a double tall vanilla latte with 3/8 a pump of vanilla. Not a half a pump. 3/8 th is a pump. One of the baristas mark our bottle pump with a Sharpie. Every single day, the first cup we would make, no matter who made it, was always wrong. Either too sweet or not sweet enough. So after a while, I begin to just pretend to make another drink, pull the steam wand and wave my hands about like a fool behind the machine. I would hand her back the drink we made her the first time and it was always perfect the second time, even though it was the same drink. On my last day of work, this woman decided to come in twice that day. She was being over obnoxious and talking on her cell phone about deals and hair assistant, and essentially just announcing her importance to everyone in the room. It was 3 o'clock. The spring in the place was filled with teenagers ordering frappuccinos. I had both blenders going and both steam wands going when this woman decided to yell at me. God, I can barely hear myself think. So I replied, funny, I can still hear you complaining. If you knew me, you'd know I have the perfect facial expressions to go with it. I look like a snarky little hit. I told her, been handing her back the same drink every morning for over a year too. I said verbatim, kinda embarrassing now that you know, right? 3/8 THIS half a pump for all intents and purposes, Haramam. She lost it. She demanded my manager fire me on the spot or she'd call corporate and we'd lose her business. Blah blah blah. I hated my manager. He was the opposite of a spirit of the rules, law, kind of person and really enjoyed making our lives more difficult than they needed to be. I knew that firing me actually reflects quite negatively on his quarterly reviews and knew he wouldn't do it. He told her it was my last day and the best he could do was send me home early, which would be a reward rather than a punishment since the store was so busy. She proceeded to spend the next 2 horse and hold with corporate outside. Then when corporate either accidentally hung up on her or told her to shove it, she threw her glasses, called me a little itch, in front of a ton of kids, and ran to her car. To her husband, so sorry for that. Totally my fault. Cool edit. She was offered a gift card I think, but this lady was universally disliked by employees and customers alike. Edit 2. Thank you so much for the responses. ITW arms my heart to see people appreciate this story as much as I do. My people. Mighty Morphing Retail Rangers. If you don't buy it, you can't have it free. Last month I closed my physical office, and everyone works from home now. Part of closing it was selling off everything in it. We also have a vendor that I had to cancel a contract on, leaving me with a $12 bill. The vendor has an office down the hall, and I chatted up one of their sales managers, vendor guy, and he expressed that they are planning to expand and might want our space. While the space is a deal with the building, maybe we can trade the furniture for the bill. It's custom fourth space and was a lot more expensive than the bill, and he seemed pretty excited about the idea. When we got a couple weeks away, I got the impression that he was clearly dragging his feet on buying the furniture, and I talked to the building management about hiring their waste contractor to haul it all out. Building guy mentions that the vendor said they might want to buy the furniture, so it has clearly come up in their discussions, and asked whether I was abandoning it. I said yes. Boot also explained the bill and trade I was trying to work out, and stated clearly that I wasn't going to pay their bill and give them free furniture. I met with the waste contractor. He sounded already familiar with the situation, and gave me a very low handshake quote for the work. I got the distinct impression everyone had a plan I wasn't included in. 2 weeks before the lease was up, I contacted vendor guy and asked him how it was coming along. He said it was being handled by other folk in his company, and I told him to communicate that I needed an answer by the end of that week. I didn't get an answer, so I completely disassembled all the furniture. It took me maybe 5 days, a giant reverse IKEA for a whole office full of custom furniture, and piled it all up in the center of the office. The day before the lease was up, I turned in the keys and paid the waste contractor's invoice. A full week later, I get a very polite email from building guy, asking whether I had the screws and parts to put it back together. No, I explained. I brought them all home along with the connecting plates and smaller metal parts, and threw them away there, and reminded him that I said if vendor guy didn't buy it, I had no intention of giving him anything for free. A couple days after that, vendor guy calls me asking about what we left in the space. I explained that he had quite a bit of nerve asking me for anything beyond their bill. Looks like the waste contractor ended up having total the work I paid them for after all. Cut me off? Lose your tablet. So I was driving to H-E-B, which is a big-name grocery store in my state, when this BMW come flying off the highway and cuts over into my lane, almost hitting the front of my truck. Out of instinct, I hit my brakes and swerved out of the way, only to have them switch back to their original lane. We pull up to a light and are both turning left as both lanes are turn lanes, and as we turn they come back into my lane, cutting me off and almost hitting me for a second time. Well, Komodo find out they were also heading to H-E-B. Now the reverse on my truck is going out, so I park in the far back of the lot so that I can pull forward out of my spot instead of reversing and start walking to the entrance. Just as I'm about to walk by the BMF, the uthole driving cones jumping out and speed walks to the store, but in doing so again cuts me off, but on foot this time. I noticed the guy was wearing a vendor shirt and carrying a tablet. We both make our way inside and I'm grumbling to myself about rude SS people. I start to head down the frozen pizza aisle when I see Mr. Uthole set his tablet down on top of the freezers and walk off. I circle the aisle 3 times and then just stop in front of the spot where he left his tablet. I stand there for a good 5 minutes and he still hasn't returned. So I reach up, grab the tablet, and then hand it off to a nearby employee, say that someone left it in the aisle. I watch as the employee takes it up to the front of the store. About that time, Mr. Uthole comes back and starts to freak out about the tablet, and I just walk away. No, I didn't steal it, and I'm sure he eventually got it back. Yes, it was petty as hell, but so was cutting me off 3 times for no reason.